us.
엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Coming up on Arirang News. In response to Pyongyang's recent ICBM launch, South Korea applies a fresh round of sanctions on 8 North Korean individuals who are accused of having taken a role in the regime's illicit trade and cyber activity. This includes the chief of the North Spy Agency. The war between Israel and Hamas seems to be widening across the Middle East, with Yemen's Houthi continuing to carry out attacks on ships in the Red Sea, while the U.S. striking targets in Iraq. South Korea's already worst fertility rate reaches another new low in October, with the number of babies born falling below 19,000, the smallest ever record for that month. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with the South Korean government imposing a new round of sanctions on North Korea in response to the regime's latest ICBM launch. The sanctions are applied to 8 North Korean individuals who are accused of having taken a role in the regime's illicit trade and cyber activities, including the North's spy agency chief. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung leads us off.
South Korea has slapped a fresh round of sanctions on North Korea in response to the regime's most recent launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile on December 18th. Seoul's foreign ministry announced Wednesday that it has targeted 8 individuals. All 8 were reportedly involved in generating profits for the North Korean regime and financing nuclear weapons and missile programs through illegal cyber activities and trading sanctioned materials, including weapons. Among those on the list is Lee Chang-ho, the head of the regime's Reconnaissance General Bureau, also known as the organization behind North Korean hacking groups such as Kim Suk-ki, Lazarus, and Andariel. Lee is accused of gaining foreign currency and stealing technology through illicit cyber activities. Park Young-han was also sanctioned for trading weapons-related goods on behalf of Korea Mining and Development Trading Corporation, North Korea's primary arms dealer. North Korean diplomat Yoon reportedly traded lithium-6, a UN-prohibited nuclear-related item. The remaining listed individuals are affiliated with Pan Systems Pyongyang, an organization sanctioned by the South Korean government in 2016 and were involved in trading North Korean-made weapons. South Korea's foreign ministry also warned that Pyongyang's provocations would come with a price. It vowed to cooperate more closely with the international community, including the U.S. and Japan, to ensure that the regime realizes that it must stop its provocations and engage in denuclearization talks. With the sanctions now in place, those wishing to engage in financial transactions with these individuals must obtain permission from the governor of the Bank of Korea or the Financial Services Commission. The latest measures are the 14th round of sanctions to be put in place against Pyongyang since the beginning of the Yoon administration. Since October last year, South Korea has targeted 83 individuals and 53 institutions. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Staying with North Korea, curtains have gone up on a key policy meeting with Kim Jong-un opening the event on Tuesday by calling the year 2023 as one of great change. According to the regime's state-run media on this Wednesday, Kim applauded advances in all areas, including the military, claiming a path to national power and prestige has been paved. The meeting sets the stage for policy directions for the year ahead and in recent times have been held twice a year as opposed to once. The economic activities and living environment of North Korean defectors here in South Korea have improved. That's according to a report unveiled by Korea Hana Foundation, showing the employment rate of North Korean defectors this year stood at more than 60%. This is up more than 1 percentage point compared to last year and is the highest figure since the records were first compiled in 2011. Also, in a survey of overall satisfaction levels of living in South Korea, nearly 80% of the participants said they're satisfied, the highest rate ever. Over in the Middle East, the continued attacks on Red Sea ships by Houthi militias and the U.S. strikes in Iraq are part of the latest developments that's renewing concerns of a wider conflict in that region. Our Lee Soo-jin tells us more.
Fears over the Israel-Hamas war escalating into a wider Middle East conflict are growing amid Houthi attacks and U.S. strikes. The Iran-backed Houthi rebel group, which controls a large part of Yemen, said on Tuesday local time that it launched missiles at an MSC United vessel in the Red Sea after the crew ignored 3 warning calls. Houthis has been attacking Red Sea ships since the start of the Israel-Hamas war on October 7 to both pressure Israel to end its war against Gaza and to prevent humanitarian aid from entering the Strip. In response, the Pentagon assembled an international naval coalition called Operation Prosperity Guardian to protect these ships. U.S. military forces also launched multiple airstrikes at 3 locations within facilities in Iraq used by the Iranian-sponsored militia Kataib Hezbollah on Christmas night, in response to the drone attacks being carried out against U.S. personnel that left 3 of its service members injured. Meanwhile, the Israeli military says it's now preparing to shift its war operations from high-intensity fighting in Gaza to a low-intensity, long-term military action. The move comes as Washington has been calling on Israel to ease up on its heavy bombardment of Gaza and focus its attacks on Hamas infrastructure to limit civilian casualties. Israel Defense Forces Chief Herzi Halazi said Tuesday that its military is expanding its fighting in southern and central Gaza, adding that it is close to dismantling all Hamas battalions in northern regions. He said many Hamas soldiers and commanders have surrendered, with hundreds being held prisoner. However, he warned that the fight will last for many more months, saying there can be no shortcuts taken when dismantling an entire organization.
This war has necessary and not easy goals to achieve. It takes place in complex territory. Therefore, the war will go on for many months, and we will employ different methods to maintain our achievements for a long time.
But the World Food Program warns that the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip is worsening and that the region has now entered the so-called food crisis stage as the armed conflict in Gaza nears the 3-month mark. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
2023 has been a year of conflict in many parts of the world. With the new war breaking out in the Middle East and the war in Ukraine entering its 3rd year, hundreds of thousands of civilians have been killed or injured, and the world is now left with a greater threat to global peace. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji takes a closer look at how these wars have affected the Korean Peninsula.
On October 7th, the Hamas militant group launched an unprecedented surprise attack in Israel, which stunned the country and killed hundreds of people. This is a war that's happening thousands of miles away, but an expert says it could still pose a risk to South Korea, as much of Washington's focus is centered on the Middle East, rather than North Korean threats.
Already, the North Korean issue for the Biden administration and United States as a whole is not top priority at all. But because of this Israel-Hamas war, the North Korean issue is getting lower in the list of the foreign policy. So it makes some kind of negative effect to the Korean Peninsula.
He added that North Korea is also using this chance to be more critical of the U.S. for supporting Israel. In fact, it appears that the North is supporting Hamas. The Israeli military said about 10% of the weapons used by Hamas during its attack on Israel on October 7th were manufactured in North Korea. At the same time, the North has also been able to make strategic moves and strengthen military cooperation with Russia this year through the war in Ukraine. In September, the North's leader Kim Jong-un even held a summit with Russia's Vladimir Putin, highlighting their strong cooperation. This sparked concerns of further arms deals between them, as it's widely believed that North Korea has been able to gain what they want by providing munitions to Russia.
Russia and North Korea have been building close ties, especially through their rare summit this year. Russia was supported with weapons and North Korea has been able to gain military technology. This transaction is how the Ukraine war has greatly impacted the situation on the Korean Peninsula.
These security risks are especially concerning as they come at a time when the North has conducted 5 ICBM launches this year, the highest number in a single year. 배은지, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, President Yoon Suk-yeol made new vice ministerial appointments on Wednesday, continuing the wave of personnel changes in his administration ahead of the April general election. Career bureaucrat Kim Jong-un was named second vice minister for economy and finance, known for his extensive experience in fiscal and budgetary policies. For the transport ministry, Jin Hyun-hwan was appointed as first vice minister to stabilize housing supply and welfare, given his experience in real estate policies. Meanwhile, Song Myung-dal, considered an all-around expert on maritime policy, marine logistics, and fisheries, was named the Vice Minister for Oceans and Fisheries. Shin Young-suk, former head of the National Human Resources Development Institute, became Vice Minister for Gender Equality and Family. This comes amid continued uncertainty over the future of the gender ministry, which the president pledged to abolish during his electoral campaign. Yoon also named a new secretariat for the Prime Minister and the head of the Public Procurement Service. South Korea's already worst fertility rate reaches another new low in October, with the number of babies born falling below 19,000, the smallest ever record for that month. Our Moon Hae-ryun reports.
South Korea saw its birth rate plummet while the number of deaths rose, leading to a natural population decline in October. Data released by Statistics Korea on Wednesday show that the total number of births recorded came to just under 19,000, a decrease of more than 8% compared to the same month last year. It's the first time that this figure has dipped below the 20,000 mark for any month of October since data was first compiled in 1981. The number of deaths was also the highest for any October, coming to over 30,000, which is a 3.4% rise on year. The country has seen a natural decline in the population since November 2019, and October of this year was no exception. Natural decline is calculated by subtracting the number of deaths from the number of births, meaning a figure for October of 11,889. This is the biggest drop in the natural population for any month of October ever recorded. Meanwhile, the number of marriages rose compared to both the month before and October 2022. The number of registered marriages came to just under 16,000, which is a 1% increase on year and more than 3,000 more than September this year. According to a Statistics Korea spokesperson, the reason for the rise is the fact that October has always been more popular than September for weddings. But July, August, and September this year saw on-year declines unlike October. And the reason given for this was that the number of marriages saw a sharp rise in the second half of last year due to the easing of COVID-19 restrictions, meaning that the base value for last year was high. That being said, October this year saw an increase, and more observation will be needed over the coming months to see whether the marriage market is seeing a recovery or whether this is simply an anomaly. Meanwhile, the number of divorces also saw an on-year rise of 6%. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Expectations for inflation among the public in the coming year drops to a 20-month low in December, led by a fall in global oil prices. Also, consumer sentiment improved for the first time in 5 months. Yoon has the details.
The Bank of Korea released results of its consumer sentiment survey on Wednesday, which shows consumer inflation expectations have dropped this month compared to the month before, amid a downward trend in consumer prices. In December, expected inflation for the year ahead was 3.2%. That's down 0.2 percentage points from the previous month, marking the lowest figure in 20 months since April last year. The central bank poll also showed the Composite Consumer Sentiment Index, or CCSI, reversed a 4-month downward streak that began in August. For December, the figure stood at 99.5, up 2.3 points from the previous month, still below the 100-point threshold, indicating that pessimists outnumber optimists. BOK officials say the improvement is due to a slowdown in rising interest rates amid hints that the cycle of U.S. Federal Reserve rate hikes has come to an end. The CCSI is used to gauge overall consumer sentiment, including for current living standards, prospective household income, and prospective spending, all of which are standardized. The central bank had expected inflation to reach a target rate of 2% by the end of this year, but now predicts inflationary pressure to continue into next year, with inflation expected to stay over 3% around the end of 2023. 이은진, Arirang News.
The average hourly wage of women workers in Korea rose last year to 70% of their male counterparts. A joint report by Seoul's Gender and Labor Ministries released on Wednesday shows both permanent and temporary female workers earned some $14 an hour on average in 2022, while men earned around $20 an hour. The report also reveals the employment rate gap between men and women shrank to 18.6% last year from 22.5% a decade ago. South Korea, beginning next year, is investing 1.5 trillion Korean won, or around $1.2 billion into ensuring the safety of workers at small-sized businesses prone to serious accidents. This is according to plans the ruling People Power Party and government announced on Wednesday. Related ministries and organizations will help over 830,000 small business conduct self-inspections on safety. Further, South Korea will foster 20,000 new safety management experts by 2026. The government and the PPP are advocating for a 2-year delay in enforcing penalties on small-sized businesses that fail to comply with the Serious Accidents Punishment Act. This legislation was amended last year, but many small businesses still need to prepare to meet its requirements. The initial postponement of 2 years is set to expire in January. Starting next year, foreign national business leaders could be designated as the so-called same person of conglomerates in Korea, meaning they would be the chiefs of the companies following a rule change. Park Gun-woo explains.
Starting from the first day of next year, Korea's Fair Trade Commission has announced that foreign nationals leading Korean conglomerates may be subject to regulation. These individuals, if designated as the same person, a term used for the chief or de facto leader of these conglomerates, will be held accountable under FTC rules. The same person is typically the chief executive of a conglomerate with total assets exceeding 5 trillion Korean won as determined by the FTC. The purpose of this designation is to closely monitor corporate behavior and enforce rules against anti-competitive practices. Furthermore, the FTC plans to implement stricter regulations for companies under the same chief, particularly in their business and financial dealings. The latest amendment introduces 4 exceptional criteria that allow the FTC to designate a corporate entity as the same person responsible for a business group, even if a different individual is officially in charge. These criteria include the actual controller of the business group does not have an investment in its affiliated company, and the official chief's relatives neither invest in nor hold executive positions in an affiliated company. If any of the 4 conditions is not fulfilled, the FTC has the authority to designate an individual, including foreign nationals, as the same person responsible for the company. This started getting controversial after Coupang, the largest e-commerce platform in Korea, was designated as a conglomerate by the FTC in 2021, and the Coupang corporate body was designated as same person instead of the Korean-American head, Kim Jong-un. As he has U.S. citizenship, there were concerns that it is unfair under Korean law to other Korean persons because there were no precise regulations for those foreign nationals. But if the amendment gets implemented, it is expected that Kim will not be designated as the same person as he fulfills all of the 4 conditions. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
In other news, marking its 20th anniversary, K-pop group TVXQ released an album for the first time in 5 years. The duo Yoon and Max Changmin dropped their 9th full-length album, 20&2, on Tuesday, the anniversary of their debut. The album features 10 songs, including the title track, Rebel. The group will also hold a 2-day concert at the Inspire Arena over in Incheon this coming weekend. Originally a 5-member group, TVXQ became a duo in 2010 after the departure of 3 members amid a legal dispute over their contract with SM Entertainment. The South Korean action film 12/12 The Day has become this year's top-grossing Korean film in North America. According to the film's distributor Plus M Entertainment on Wednesday, the movie, based on South Korea's military coup in 1979, surpassed the $1 million mark in North American ticket sales to becoming the highest-earning Korean movie in the region this year. This comes just around a year after the 2022 film, The Roundup, reached $1 million milestone in North America. 12/12 The Day, starring Hwang Jung-min and Jung Woo-sung, is also the most watched movie in Korea this year, hitting the 10 million milestone in ticket admissions as of Sunday. South Korean actor Lee Sun-gyun from the Oscar-winning movie Parasite has died at the age of 48. He was found unconscious in his car by police on Wednesday morning in central Seoul. According to reports, police had earlier been made aware of a note which was described as similar to a suicide note at actor's home. He had been facing an investigation over drug allegations since October and was interrogated by authorities for a 3rd time on Saturday. He rose to global fame following the release of the movie Parasite in 2019.
Much milder winter temperatures for the last week of the year. There are no worries about the cold tomorrow either. The morning will start at -2 degrees in Seoul. It will rise to 6 degrees, very similar to today. Daily highs will exceed the previous year's temperatures by 3 to 4 degrees nationwide. For the time being, this mild winter weather will continue. It is difficult to do outdoor activities even without the cold wave. As the smoke from overseas flowed in and the atmosphere stagnated, fine dust is accumulating in the west. The ultrafine dust in the Seoul metropolitan area and Chungcheongdo provinces, parts of the Jeollado provinces, will be at bad levels. Wearing ultrafine dust mask is very important when going outside. Tomorrow, Seoul and Daejeon will start off at -2 degrees. As for the maximum temperatures, Seoul and Chuncheon will get up to 6, Gwangju and Daegu 10 degrees Celsius. On the weekend, rain or snow is in the forecast throughout the country, clearing fine dust away. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that brings an end to this newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 10 p.m. with the AI Headline News. Good night.